Welcome back to Starkiller Base. Today we have our featured match from round 3 of the February 2017 Winter Kit at Face-to-Face Games in Toronto. On the left we have Paul playing eAckbar, eLeia, and on the right we have Lanny playing eRey, ePoe. So Lanny brought the Emperor's Throne Room, which is a fantastic addition to any Poe Dameron deck, and Paul seems to not have his battlefield out right now, so we'll see what he brings. One of the difficulties in playing the eAckbar deck is that your die control doesn't really include anything that can take care of specials, so Poe or a Holocron deck can be a real problem for it. So the players have just finished their mulligans, and they are rolling in. Paul just remembered his battlefield. Looks like he brought Frozen Wastes. So it looks like Paul wins initiative, and it gets to choose the battlefield. I'm thinking that he doesn't want to bring the Emperor's War Room into that, so he's taken Frozen Wastes, which is sort of the exact opposite of what Poe's looking for. Something that gets rid of a Poe die as opposed to turning it into something very useful. So I think that was definitely a good choice. Lanny starts off by putting a couple of shields on Rey. And Lanny's using those nice Broken Egg Games tokens. I apologize for the slight angle on the mat.
I played this deck maybe 10 times, and I have never seen this card. Except for one up. You're rolling an Ackbar?
Paul rolls an Ackbar. He gets a 2 focus and 1 discard. Lanny plays Rey's Staff on Rey. Lanny rolls in Poe, and he gets a Disrupt and a Special. And with this deck, Lanny could have any number of things in his hand. He could be throwing a black 1 at Paul, a Force Throw, a Mind Probe, all kinds of stuff that can do some pretty devastating damage, so we'll see what he's running. Leia comes in with a focus on a range damage. Lanny resolves the special on Poe, discarding a black 1 and doing 3 damage to Leia. I'm a little surprised that Paul hasn't played out any upgrades before rolling both of his characters in, but sometimes the deck doesn't give you any, so we'll see what's going on there. Paul's resolving focus and setting both of Leia's dice to 2 range damage. And Lanny's going to roll in Rey. Rey's Staff is such a fantastic addition to Rey, which I guess isn't that much of a surprise because it provides so many of those black melee damage sides. So Lanny rolled in, gets a blank, a 3 melee for 1, and a +2 melee. Unfortunately, Lanny doesn't have any resources. Paul puts 4 range damage into Poe, and Lanny discards to reroll. He gets a blank, and a resource. So the roll kind of got worse, but at least he can now resolve some melee damage potentially. Paul just went to play all in with 1 die, which is kind of odd. I paid 1 for Dug In. And I guess since Lanny's already shown who he's going to attack first, Paul has the easy opportunity to put 3 shields onto Leia. So the question is now, does Lanny put 3 damage into Ackbar, or does he keep pounding on Leia there? She's only got 8 hit points left, so getting rid of those shields wouldn't be a bad call. So I'm not sure what Lanny did there, and then Paul resolved the discard and hit a launch bay. So as you can see, if we were playing with the Emperor's Throne Room here, Lanny could have resolved one of the Poe die naturally and then claimed and done a launch bay into somebody as well. So he pays 1, does 3 damage to Leia, and gets rid of those shields. And then Paul claims and removes the Poe die. Lanny's only got 1 card left, and that Rey die is not all that appealing by itself, so passes and starts the next round. So Lanny has seen that Paul has an all-in in hand because he accidentally tried to play it out last round. So he's got to watch out for the focuses, but without any upgrades on the eAckbar deck, it's not all that threatening. So Paul plays at a promotion on Ackbar, draws a card, and Lanny plays at a DH17 on Poe. I think with 2 upgrade slots left on Rey, I might be inclined to just play it on her, since Paul has already shown that Poe is the the first target in his deck here. But once again, I don't know how Lanny's got his deck built. He may have specific blue-only upgrades like Force Throw and that sort of thing that he wants to put on eRey. Here comes eAckbar. He rolls a blank, a resource, and another resource. Poe comes in and rolls, wow, 3 range for 1, a 3 range for 1, and a shield. And Paul plays defensive position and gets rid of both of those 3 range for 1. So getting rid of those 2 Poe dice, regardless of what they show, is pretty great in a Poe-centric deck, let alone the fact that he had 6 range damage showing and could resolve at least 3 of it. So Rey comes in. She rolls a discard, a special on the Rey staff, and 1 melee. So the Rey staff special is pretty nice, but a lot of the tricks in the eAckbar eLeia deck involve you resolving range damage without your opponent being able to do anything about it, like an all-in, where they can't, you turn it to a range side and they can't stop it from happening, or it's a trap. So eLeia comes in here. She rolls a 2 range and a 2 range for 1. Sorry, those are both 2 range for 1s. So Paul can't resolve both of them. And Lanny can't stop both of them with his Rey staff, so he removes one of them. Because Paul could have claimed the 2 resources and then hit for 4, I suppose. Paul takes 2 resources. I believe he was playing a launch bay in his deck, so stacking up some resources and getting launch bay would be really handy. Lanny takes a shield and puts it on Poe. And then Paul pays 1 to do 2 damage to Poe. And then Lanny promptly gets rid of those 2 damage with a field medic. So there's not a lot of dice left out here to do anything particularly interesting. So we'll see what they do. So Paul claims the battlefield, gets rid of Rey's die, and then Lanny resolves the discard from the other Rey die. And hits and it's a trap, so I'm sure he is happy to see that one gone with the fact that he's got range damage sides on half of his dice. And then Lanny passes. So I get the feeling that Paul's deck is starving him of upgrades a little bit here, because he can certainly afford to play them and he doesn't have many out there. And I've had that happen before, actually, in my match in round 2 against Paul. It was a mirror match, and for the first 4 turns, the only thing I saw was a comlink. Thankfully, I had all kinds of defensive positions and dug-ins and it's a traps and that sort of thing to make my damage consistent, and I managed to beat him by 2 hit points, I think, at the end of the game. So sometimes your deck can mess with you, and it doesn't necessarily spell the end for your game, but it can certainly hurt things. Paul pays 2 for a holdout blaster on eLeia. So he's got an upgrade out, yay. And then plays hit and run as his second action after the ambush. Generally, I like to save my hit and runs for situations like where I could potentially kill somebody, or if, let's say, my opponent's rolled out range damage already and I have an It's a Trap in my hand, then I can get all my dice out first before doing It's a Trap. I mean, it doesn't hurt to get both of your characters rolled in one action, but I mean, if there's no end game for it, then it may be a better time to save the card for later. So Paul's got a blank, a 1 ranged, a resource, a 2 focus, and a +1 melee. Lanny rolls in Rey and gets a resource, a blank, and a +2 melee. Now Paul plays all in. This explains the hit and run play. So he's got that focus. He's resolving it first. I don't think he has enough damage potential to kill Poe there, but he can certainly put some hurt into him. So he's only using the 1 focus. You can chain the 2 focus on eAckbar into another 2 focus on eAckbar and focusing something else. So he's putting 5 damage into Poe, and then he's sitting on a +1 melee on his promotion die.
The resource you got from the 1 die, did you need it?
So Lanny's just asking what I was thinking is that he could have focused the eAckbar die into a 2 focus and then had 3 of his dice set to whatever he wanted. Whereas this way he just only used 2. If he needs the second resource for something, then it makes sense, I suppose, because then he can play Daring Escape or something like that. Or maybe he's got another upgrade in his hand he wants to play out, like a Comlink that he's saving for some of Lanny's rolls. Who knows? It's hard to tell what somebody's thinking when you don't have access to what's in their hand. So Lanny plays out a DH17 on ePoe. Once again, ePoe has only got 4 hit points left, so I'm not sure that putting out upgrades that don't have redeploy on ePoe is the best plan when Ray's got 2 empty upgrade slots on her side still. So ePoe comes in, rolls a 2 range for 1, a blank, and a 3 range for 1. And could put 5 damage into somebody if Paul doesn't have an answer to this. Daring Escape would be fantastic right now since he's got 3 blanks already. So it looks like he played Field Medic. And Leia only has 1 damage on her now. So Leia is discarding to re-roll. A little bit dangerous to not resolve those first in a deck that you know is probably playing defensive position. If he's expecting modified sides, maybe, but he could have re-rolled into 5 dice that had showing 2 or higher and then lost all of them for 1 resource on Paul's side. So Lanny re-rolled, he got a resource, 1 melee, another couple of blanks. And we're looking to see what Paul is planning on doing here. Doesn't have many resources, doesn't have many cards, and he's got a largely useless die out there. So, I mean, he could re-roll and have a 2 in 6 chance of doing something useful, but I imagine he's going to pass and wait. He can always wait for Lanny to re-roll the ePoe die into something more beneficial and then claim the battlefield to get rid of it. Lanny's discarding and re-rolling everything but the Ray's staff, which was a good choice because Ray just rolled her +2.
I don't think it counts in your hand.
So that is a lot of damage. He's got a single melee, a +2 melee, a 2 range, a 2 range for 1, and a 2 range for 1. So unfortunately, Lanny doesn't have enough money to pay for all that stuff, but he can still put 5 damage into somebody. Paul claims and gets rid of that ePoe die, and then Lanny puts 3 melee into Leia, and then 2 more range damage into her. Against the eAckbar deck, you need to be mindful not to get rid of your last card, even when you're discarding cards. Say you had a card that you didn't really want in your hand, it was your last card, and you wanted to discard it and then draw back up to 5. When you discard that last card from your hand, eAckbar's ability will trigger, even though it's not really in a game round.
What the hell is it?
So another holdout blaster on Leia. Because it has that redeploy, it's not a bad choice to get her geared up and then roll her in with the second action. You want to get those dice in the pool so you can resolve it just in case Lanny pulls out something that he can kill her with. Ray puts on a holdout blaster as well, which means that ePoe can do the roll and resolve, which could potentially kill Leia here. Unless you roll 3 blanks and a range damage, 2 range damage for 1.
Rolling like a champ.
That was pretty lucky for Paul there. His second action, Lanny discards to re-roll, and gets 3 more blanks and a shield. Oh my goodness. Whew. He just checks his dice to see if he's got multiple blanks on a misprinted die or something. Unfortunately, no, it just looks like you just got unlucky there. Paul activates eAckbar. He gets a focus, a 1 resource, and a 1 discard. There are no range damage size showing on Paul's dice, so Lanny could not do It's a Trap, even if he had the money. But you should always be mindful of that sort of thing. When you're playing against a deck that can run It's a Trap, if you've got range damage out there and you're not needing it to use with modified sides, resolve it as quickly as possible so that you give your opponent less chances to use it as a trap on you. Paul's resolving focus here, and he's setting his dice up to be a nice big hit from the looks of it. He's got a resource showing a 2 range, a 2 range, and a +2 range. That's enough to kill Poe through the shield, but if Lanny gets rid of one of those dice, then Poe will have 1 hit point left. I guess he doesn't have much to answer that.
Can't even roll 2 damage. Piece of shit.
Ray comes in, and there's his answer. 1 action too late. So Paul's likely to just kill Poe here. Get rid of 4 dice.
7.
5.
Yeah, so
So you know 6.
yeah. So I can't split it up. Sorry about that.
So I'm saying you know 6.
So he puts all 6 into Poe. Poe needed 5 to die, so he had to resolve all of them. With only Ray left with a Poe deck, chances are there's going to be some dead cards here. He doesn't have any resources, so he's probably not going to start saving up money to play things like that black one he just discarded. I think I'd be keeping the +2 and re-rolling everything else to try to get some black melee damage in there. He gets 2 blanks, a special on Ray's staff, and a 2 range damage for 1 without any money. Paul resolves logistics. This has not been a very good round for Lanny's rolls. So Lanny discards a Mind Probe and rolls in again. I guess he set those sides to melee sides to sort of will the dice to be kind to him. He rolls in, gets a resource, a discard, a +2 range, and a blank. So it was slightly better than before, but still not much to write home about, unfortunately. Lanny resolves the discard. And then takes a resource. I'm not sure. I guess Paul must have claimed, but I'm not sure when he did it. Nope. He didn't claim yet. He wants to get his promotion out. Okay, that makes sense, because I would have thought he would have claimed to get rid of one of those Ray dice. But he's got plans, which probably don't involve dug-in or defensive position. So it doesn't look good for Lanny here. However, if he can do 2 damage to Leia, then that changes the game around a lot, because Paul will lose 3 dice. Force throw will definitely help out. Lanny plays a force throw on Ray, rolls it in, and hoping for the special, I'm sure, and gets a blank again. He gets a discard, 2 resources, and 2 blanks. So once again, definitely not what Lanny was looking for, and you can see he's getting a little frustrated here. I don't really blame him. Unfortunately, with a game that involves cards and dice, sometimes they just don't go your way. So Paul plays his second field medic on Leia, so Leia now has 4 hit points remaining. All Lanny can do here is re-roll. I stand corrected. Lanny takes 2 resources instead. Paul plays it at an IQA. Lanny re-rolls. Gets 3 damage and a blank on that force throw again. 3 damage is not bad. It would have been nice to have it 2 actions earlier so he could have killed Leia with it. So Paul plays hit and run wisely because Leia won't be around for much longer. He gets a resource, and then resolves 3 damage into Ray, 2 of which are absorbed by shields. And then Ray hits Leia back for 3. So she only has 1 hit point left. It's the kind of situations where you wish you had backup muscle in your deck. eAckbar comes in, 2 focus, 1 resource, +1 ranged, and 1 resource. So he can focus that into some pretty hefty damage. The Leia die and the IQA alone can do 5. Lanny was hoping for that force throw special again and gets a 1 disrupt, which it's not going to do much, unfortunately. Paul's resolving focus. Puts the IQA into a +3. And I'm assuming the Leia die into a black 2. The issue is that he's setting himself up so that he can have his dice controlled. Oh, Lanny claimed, I guess, and got rid of the Leia die, which was wise if he didn't have anything in his hand to do it with. So Paul's discarding to reroll. He gets a blank, 1 resource, and a focus, so he could focus that into a 2 ranged for 1 and then do 5 damage into Rey, which is not a bad recovery from losing that Leia die. So he takes the resource, puts 5 damage into Rey. Rey has 4 hit points left. I'm not sure what kind of control cards Lanny runs in his deck, but he's got probably the 2 best control upgrades out on Rey right now.
With the force for 2.
So Lanny puts a 1 with the force over top of his hold-up blaster and rolls in. And you got a 2 focus, a +1 resource, a melee, a 1 resource, and finally has that force throw special. So Paul's used both of his hit and runs, and he's got a problem if he rolls in any of his dice, because Lanny can even throw a 1 resource into Leia and kill her. Although eAckbar with an IQA and 2 hold-up blasters does sound kind of intimidating. The focus on 1 with the force is really nice, but with raised dice there isn't really all that much to write home about to focus to. So Leia comes in, rolls 2 blanks, a 1 ranged, and a +2 ranged, and Lanny kills her with the 1 melee, which is probably a good call. Save that force throw for something else. Even force throwing something like the 2 focus on eAckbar is really good, because the swing in damage from that would be pretty huge. So Leia is now down, and it is 4 hit points of Rey versus 9 hit points of eAckbar. They're both fully upgraded, so we'll see how this goes. I'm not sure who's going to take this one. Paul rolls in eAckbar. He gets a 1 disrupt, a 2 range for 1, a blank, a shield, and a 1 range. So that is 3 of Rey's 4 remaining hit points, so it might be worthwhile force throwing that holdout blaster into eAckbar just to do it defensively. Lanny plays dodge for 2. That's not a bad call either. It would be nice to be able to focus that Rey staff into a special, and then he could defend against 2 dice in 1 action. He could put Rey's die into a 1 melee, and then have a couple of specials left to play defensively. There's still options here. I think the most helpful side on the 1 with the force right now would be the 3 range damage, though. Unless Paul's got it and it's a trap. This game is pretty tight, so Paul's giving it a little bit of extra thought, which is never a bad plan. He's got a lot of resources to play with whatever he's got in his hand there, and he doesn't really need to spend them on any upgrades on eAckbar, so he can use them for pay sides and things like Rey's staff, apparently. It's not a bad call. Rey's staff is an interesting include in the deck. When you're trying to put out 4 damage, it's pretty reliable. So Lanny takes 2 resources. When you override an upgrade where there are 2 identical upgrades on the same character, you get to choose, as the controller, you get to choose which die you remove when you do it. So Paul takes a shield. Lanny force throws the 1 disrupt into eAckbar. Paul claims the battlefield,
I will use the force.
and then Lanny plays use the force, sets that
Damage to
one with the force side to 3 range damage and hits eAckbar with it. So it's a pretty close game. I think Lanny has a field medic or 2 left. I think 1 left. He used 1 on Poe. Paul is completely out, but Paul does own the battlefield.
see your descriptor.
So Lanny's checking to see how many dug-ins and defensive position he's played. In a game that's this tight, a single defensive position can blow out an entire turn easily.
Defensive position and a third.
It's going to be very difficult for Lanny to stop this if Paul rolls in eAckbar and gets good die sides.
That's it, 1 dug in. How many cards do you have left? 4.
Alright, I'll give you that.
And Paul does not roll well, apparently. 1 ranged, 1 resource, 1 discard, and 1 disrupt. So Lanny plays field medic and heals Ray a bit. eAckbar answers with a dug in. So Ray has 6 effective hit points and eAckbar has 9. Ray's coming in. Gets a 2 disrupt, a 1 melee, a 3 disrupt, +1 resource, and a +2 melee. So he's got 3 melee damage out there. Probably not looking to use those disrupts, although I guess you could get rid of the resources. Paul's got 2 more resources on his dice, so he's probably not really that concerned about it. This is going to come down to discarding and resolving damage, I'm assuming. And of course, as soon as I say that, Paul spends a resource for a defensive position. And ouch. Lanny loses 3 dice.
At that point, do 1 damage to Paul.
You can see the huge swing the defensive position just caused in this turn. Lanny does 1 damage to eAckbar, and Paul's got 3 cards or so to reroll with. Discards 1 to reroll. He gets, that's a lot of damage. 3 ranged, a +3 ranged, a 2 ranged for 1, 2 blanks, and a special on the Ray staff. Lanny plays dodge. He gets rid of that 5 damage, which is definitely a good call. So Paul has the potential to do 5 damage here if he gets the range damages on both eAckbar dice and the 3 melee for 1 on the Ray staff. It's not quite enough to kill Ray, but it's pretty darn close. I think Lanny should probably consider... Oh, Paul beat him to it. I was going to say Lanny should probably consider claiming so that he can get his dice in first because his dice are reactive. They're the control sides. So Paul may have seen that or has something decent in his hand, decides to claim instead. Gets rid of Lanny's last die and makes sure that Lanny isn't pulling any tricks on him. So eAckbar's coming in for the kill here. And yeah, not so much. Gets a 1 melee, a blank, a resource, a 1 resource, and a shield. One of the interesting thing about these blue force ability upgrades is they all have a range damage side. I think that they were actually designed that way just so that the It's a Trap decks can have a bit of a chance here. So Lanny rolls in, and he does have a range damage side showing, so if Paul has It's a Trap, he could put Lanny to having 1 hit point left. Yeah, so there's the It's a Trap. So Lanny's got a 2 disrupt, a 1 discard, a 3 ranged, a 1 melee, and a +1 resource. So Paul can put 5 damage into Ray with this It's a Trap, and then kill her with the melee next action, which puts Lanny in a pretty tough spot here.
Five damage with him? Oh, she's still left.
So Ray has 1 hit point remaining.
Can't modify this.
He's got no shields on his dice. Doesn't control the battlefield. He may not have any answers to this. We'll see.
John.
Oh, he calls the judge over, which in this turn it was me.
Can I this on Ray
Okay.
to claim and then that.
So I believe what he was asking was if you could put out a holdout blaster on Ray
No.
to gain 2 actions.
You don't get
First action, claim the battlefield. Second action, play dug in.
every action after you claim
But the trick
battlefield
is
has
that
to be a pass.
every action that you have after you've claimed the battlefield must be a pass. So even if you have extra actions when you've claimed, you can't do anything about it.
That's the rule.
Really?
Yes.
But I thought that's what Hyperloop works on, is the fact that you can do it that way.
Hyperloop is that when you claim your result.
So he was a little bit confused in that when you, with Hyperloop decks and that sort of thing, claiming is actually allowing you to do something, but it's not allowing you to execute any actions after you claim. It's just that your claim ability on the battlefield is when you claim it, you turn a die to a special side and resolve it. So there's no actions after that. It's just sort of a reaction to claiming the battlefield.
It doesn't matter how many actions you have afterwards, they have to be passes. If they're card abilities, then they can still go, but you can't take an action to do it.
So Lanny's probably not happy to hear that, but that's how the game works, unfortunately. If the damage on Paul's side of the board was coming from a character die, he could claim the battlefield and get rid of it, but at this point, I don't know that Lanny can do anything about this. So he's just giving it some thought here. It's a pretty tall hill to climb when you've got 1 hit point left, and Ackbar has 8. I mean, there is 4 damage sitting on Lanny's board right now, which is most of it. So there is the GG. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you Destiny content. Thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for the round 4 video of this tournament, which is our final round, coming in the next few days.